So yeah, we'll jump straight in to that. Arsenal, Brighton won. Arsenal won. It's a proper game of two halves, wasn't it? Started off brilliantly, that historic Ethan Nwaneri goal. Now the first Arsenal player to score more than one Premier League goal before his 18th birthday. And then the second half headbutt, clash of heads, whatever you want to call it. It meant that Arsenal dropped two more points. But then, the next day, I think everyone expected Liverpool to completely blow Man United out of the water. That didn't happen. Man United got a well-deserved draw at Anfield, so it's as you were in the Premier League table. So the draw at Brighton, it's an opportunity missed, but it's not fatal to Arsenal's title hopes, is it?
No, I mean, if you thought Arsenal were in the title race before the Brighton game, I suppose you have to think they're still in the title race after it because the gap's not got any bigger. I mean, another game has ticked by, so I suppose you can look at it that way in terms of Liverpool's lead is still there, and they've, another round of fixtures has gone, and Arsenal haven't closed the gap on them. But it was a tough game, the Brighton game for Arsenal. They just looked to me like they were running on fumes in that second half. I thought the first half they were okay. They probably just about deserved to get themselves in front. I thought they had quite a bit of control of the game, weren't looking overly troubled by what Brighton had to offer. Brighton made a few changes, didn't they, at the start of the second half, and I think that made a bit of a difference. But I think Arsenal, just with everything that's going on at the moment, all the players that are missing, the illness, which is a big issue in the squad, they just looked really, really tired, I thought, in that second half and out of ideas almost. Having said that, I still don't think they looked under much pressure, and I don't think Brighton would have got themselves back into that game had it not been for the penalty. And so, that was a big, big decision. I can understand why Arsenal felt pretty aggrieved afterwards with that one. In real time, I looked at it and I thought, that's probably a penalty. But I mean, I was at the very back I was in the overflow section of the press box at Brighton, and if anyone knows how far away from the pitch that is, it's a long, long way, and we didn't have cameras working up there, so I didn't get any replays. And when I got home and I was watching the replays in slow mo, and you see that little touch that Saliba gets to the ball, it's a very harsh decision, and you can understand, as I said, why they feel a little bit aggrieved, because it's just something you just don't see. We'll watch football for another 10 years, we will not see another penalty decision like that. And for Arsenal fans, they just feel like those sort of things are going against them time and time again now. It's all these, the yellow cards for time wasting, yellow cards for kicking the ball away, all the things we're just not seeing anyone else seemingly booked for. And then there's another incident there that ends up costing Arsenal 2 points. And it's kind of the story of Arsenal's season, really. So, yeah, it just looked like a game where they tired, but I still feel like they would have had enough to get the win had it not been for that decision.
Yeah, social media is always awash with all these, Arsenal fans bringing up all these controversial decisions
Yeah.
recent months whenever that happens. But you mentioned there about, they looked quite tired in the second half. I saw an interesting stat after the game that said, so Arsenal, I think, have won so it's five of their last nine Premier League games when they've been leading at half time. But before that, they'd won 22 in a row when leading at half time. So is that just that fatigue that you mentioned coming into play, or is there a bit of complacency, do you think? What's the reason for that change?
Well, I think a big part of it's probably the red cards they got, because two of those they were leading was Brighton and Manchester City when they ended up going down to 10 men for, again, those incidents we just been talking about, kicking the ball away. So I think that played a part in it. I think definitely the Brighton game, there's fatigue there. You look at that Brighton match, there was no Odegaard, no Saka, no Havertz, no Martinelli to start the game. Even when Odegaard and Martinelli came on, you could see they were so miles off it. They needed to be home under a blanket on the sofa with some Lemsip rather than playing on a football pitch. So you could just see they were nowhere near it, the levels they needed to be because of this illness. So I think that's just playing a big, big part at the moment for Arsenal. And I thought that showed in that game against Brighton. Brighton had a couple of extra days to prepare for that one than Arsenal did, and I think that certainly helped them get the point in the end. But yeah, it's just another one of those games. I think it really does feel like the story of Arsenal's season, and I don't want to make excuses for what's going on at Arsenal, because look, they're second. It's not a disaster by any means. They're doing well in the cup competitions, doing well in the Champions League, but it does still feel like um, pretty much that everything that could have gone wrong for Arsenal this season has gone wrong. They've been battling an awful lot of stuff, and that's not to excuse anyone of any blame. I think Arsenal are definitely short when it comes to, they left themselves short in the transfer window. They left the squad a little bit short. They took a gamble. That gamble's backfired. But I'm not sure anyone would have expected quite how bad injuries and everything like that would have hit the squad this season. It's been pretty brutal.
Yeah, it does always feel like there's just one recurring issue after the next with Arsenal
Yeah.
this season. Not like having 10 players out at once, but always just a new injury concern every single week, it
Well,
seems.
you look at what's happened to Ethan Manieri now. You know, you're forced into throwing a 17-year-old kid in to replace Bukayo Saka, who goes down injured finally, and then he comes in, does well, plays well against Brentford, contributes to a couple of goals in that game, starts again at Brighton, scores, and then picks up an injury, and he's out for a few weeks now as well. It's just one thing on top of another. And they always seem to be clustered in the same sort of areas of the pitch at the moment. We've had the right back issues. You know, Arsenal got about 3 or 4 right backs, and suddenly they're all gone at the same time. And it's the same with the attackers at the moment. So, yeah, they're not being helped by injuries, but again, I think a lot of people will look at what the business or the lack of business they did in the summer and feel like they kind of put themselves in this position as well, left themselves open to this.